got a couple error lights on in my 2012 Chevy Volt. This one right here, and then that one right there. You have the ABS and the StabiliTrak light. I was worried this might be an issue. I had a clicking noise in my front right tire. I thought it was either the hub bearing or the axle nut. I replaced the axle nut and the clicking noise went away, but now I get these error messages. I think it has something to do with the wheel sensor based on what I saw online, the speed sensor. So I have my V-Peak OBD2, it's the BLE, and that plugs in down here, right in there. Alright, so that's plugged in, and I'll take my phone, I have the car scanner app. I will connect to the V-Peak. Okay, and then I will click on diagnostic codes, read. I'll read automatic. And then let's see what comes up. It's like it's loading, and yeah, I have a front right wheel speed sensor. That's the C1222, and then C1226, and right front speed sensor. So this will either be the speed censoring wiring or the speed sensor on the hub bearing, and I'm assuming it's going to be the hub bearing because I had an issue with it before. So I bought a new one and I'm going to replace that. I was able to download the service manual for this car, and this is the diagnostics page for the codes that I'm getting that shows the possible causes. So you can pause the video here to look at it. And this is the bearing hub replacement procedure in the service manual in case you want to pause the video here too. Given that I've decided to replace the bearing hub, the first step will be to take off the tire. So I'm going to position my jack and then jack up the car. The Chevy Volt weighs around 3,500 pounds. I have a 2¼ ton low profile jack. This car sits very low, so that'll be plenty to lift this car. Plus, I'm only lifting kind of 1/4 of the weight because I'm not lifting the whole car with this jack. Then I'll put it up on jack stands. I'll show you how to do that. Here's where the service manual for this car shows the jacking point. Right here, this piece of steel. That's where I'm going to position the jack under. You can pause the video here to look at the service jack location page from the service manual. You're going to want to make sure you're on a solid, level surface. And I found that if I position the jack right there in between the tire and the wheel well, I'm able to manipulate the bar. And then I can raise it right underneath that service jack location. So right there, I'm just touching it, and that's where I'm going to stop for a second. With the car's weight still resting on the tire, now's a good time to grab a 19mm socket and a breaker bar. And what you can do is just crack these wheel stud bolts, which means you're just going to break that initial seal. And always work in an alternating pattern. And that's it for right now. With those loosened, I'll start to jack this up. I don't need to go very high either. I really just want the tire to clear the ground. Checking to make sure that I'm in the right spot. And that looks good right there. I'll get my jack stands into place and then chock the wheels so that they don't move. The service manual shows the lifting point of the car. If you have it up on a lift, as right here along the body at that pinch weld right there. So that's what I have my jack stand positioned under. I'm going to click it up to just underneath it, and then I'll lower that down right there. Another good place to pause the video. This shows the lifting points from the service manual. So I'll take the jack and lower it very slowly onto that jack stand. Okay, and once that's done, I'm going to take my jack, go just snug to the underside of that jacking point and keep it right there. So now I'll chock my wheels. With the jack stand in place, I just pop some spare 4x4s underneath each tire with a hammer so that it won't move. The car jacked up. Make sure nothing moves on me before I take that wheel off. And even still, at no time am I really going to be under here. I have a regular impact driver with an extension that'll be a 1/4 inch by 1/2 inch drive for this 19mm socket, and it's going to make this go a lot faster. With that done, take the wheel off the studs, and I'm going to slide it right under here, just in case. And then again, I'm not going to be under here. This right here is the drive shaft nut that I had originally replaced because of some clicking noise. Might have been the issue, might not have. Now is a good time to loosen this. What you can do is there's a bunch of slots in this rotor. If I put a screwdriver right on the back side of the caliper, I can take my socket and just break that seal, loosen up this nut. This one that I replaced is a 36mm, but the one that comes with the car is a 32. That's really it. The next step will be to take off the caliper, the brake caliper. And to do that, I'm just going to take off the whole assembly. And there are 2 caliper bracket bolts. So there's one right there. And then here's one right down here. They're right in the back of this mounting bracket. I'll show you in the manual. And one step makes it a little bit easier is to go in and turn the wheel a little bit. It'll help access these bolts a little better. Try to give a bird's eye view here. Like I said, if I rotate the wheel, it'll help me get down on this a little more. So if I tighten it up a little bit, I should be able to loosen it a little easier. There we go. Nice and easy. And then that one is now broken. So I'll do the same thing at the bottom. This one I'm just going to try to... Oh, this one was a lot easier. That just went right down. Now I've switched to a smaller socket wrench. This is a 3/8 drive with an adapter so that I can use my 1/2 inch drive sockets with it.
And these will come right up.
then there's two. The caliper should come off fairly easily. Here's your brake hose, your brake line fluid. There's a little harness right here that I unclipped, and I kind of pre-hung on the shock spring right here, just a piece of scrap 12 gauge wire, because I don't want this hanging on this hose here. What I'm going to do is just slide that off nicely. This thing is surprisingly heavy, so I'm just going to wrap it around the top. 12 gauge wires, pretty strong. The next step will be to take off the rotor, and this is held into place kind of nicely right here with this this is a Torx T30 bolt, and that might be a little dirty. Just gonna clean that off real fast. Take this, try to clean that out. Should be okay. Let's hope this doesn't strip. So put this aside and save it for reinstallation. And the rotor, yeah, this rotor came right off. The next step will be to remove the wheel sensor, the speed sensor. So that is right there. You can kind of see it through the slot in this splash plate. And you see it's right up there. That's only a 10 millimeter bolt. With that bolt unscrewed, I'll just wiggle this out. Actually came out pretty easily. I just have some brake parts cleaner on a rag here I used to clean off this speed sensor. This is the part that rides along a magnetic strip on the back side of this bearing hub, and that there's definitely an issue with my car with this reading properly. So I'm hoping it's the bearing hub and not the sensor, because I know I've had an issue with this bearing hub, and that's what I'm replacing. Next step for me before I take all this off is to make sure that the replacement bearing hub that I have actually matches. So this looks pretty good. It looks about the same. The part number is right there. This is a GM part, and I was pretty confident this would fit, because I have an uncle who deals in genuine dealer parts. So I'm going to start by taking this off. There are 3 bolts that attach this to the knuckle, one here, here, and here, and you can kind of see this triangle shape around the hub, and that'll help you locate the bolts and behind the knuckle. One right here is pretty easy to access. The other one here is okay. The one at the top, I'm going to have to probably turn my wheel again to access it. You can pause the video here to see those bolt locations as shown in the service manual. Show you where this upper bolt is. This is where it lands, so follow through. It's right back there. It's in a really awkward location. So I have to essentially take a small 18 millimeter socket, snug it on there, and then an adapter, just an extension with an adapter. Then I'm going to connect right here with my 1/2-inch breaker bar and loosen that up. Alright, now that I'm on this bolt, I'm going to gently, that just broke it. That just broke the seal. So I'm going to try to slowly take it off. And you know what? I think that got it right there. Let's see if I can get this out by hand now. And that's it. Oh, and by the way, the caliper mounting bolts and the bearing hub bolts, these are torque to yield fasteners. Cannot reuse these. Have to replace them. These are one-time use only, and I have the part numbers for these. I'll show you later. I was able to loosen this bolt in a similar fashion. And once loose, I can get it out. This last bolt is probably the most awkward. Just broke that seal. So I may be able to just get on this with the smaller socket. Again, 36 millimeter. And off. So I'm going to keep whacking away at this. Okay, that was seized on there pretty well. Not too much damage to that, not bad. There's my drive shaft, and this washer here is actually broken. I have the new part. This is something we're gonna have to replace. First thing I'm gonna do though is clean all this off. I have this wire brush adapter for my drill. This will do a nice job of cleaning this off without actually warping any of the metal. Looking at the components here, I mean, this washer is beat up. There's 3 little tabs here. 2 of them are broken off. And if I look at the back side of my bearing hub assembly, looks like there's one of those tabs there. And this thing just gets really dirty. Now it may be the case that I could just clean this ring off and then the code might go away, but I have it off, so I'm just going to replace it. The part's like 30 bucks, or I think 70 bucks. Yeah, there's one of those tabs just kind of stuck to the magnetic part there. So this is probably the reason I was getting that code. We'll see. Now for the fun part of putting all this back together. First thing I'm going to do is take some copper anti-seize lubricant. I was able to get all this cleaned out really nicely, but this is the part that kind of rusts and corrodes. I'm in Philadelphia, so we do get salt on the roads, snow. So I'm just going to put a very thin film. So if I ever have to do this again, this one will be easier to remove. and I can see right here the hole where the speed sensor goes. So I'm going to try to kind of maneuver some of the anti-seize out of that hole. So I don't want it gunking up the speed sensor. So I'm actually even going to clean off the area around and in that hole. So that's what I'll do, and then I'll kind of go right around the face of this too. And the first thing to replace will be this this washer, this click reducing washer. This is the new one. See how it's a little bulkier. The tabs are definitely bulkier. And this is the model number on that. You have to replace this each time you do that. So I'll throw away the old one and put this right over the splines of the CV for the drive shaft. Right, like so. And then the next step will be to grab one bolt for the bearing hub. And you see the bolt there. I'm also going to take a little thread locker. These looked like they had a little thread locker at the very tail end when I took them off. So I'm going to put just a little thread locker on this one. And here is that part number on the bolt, 11570675. And you need 3 of these bolts. Again, these are GM bolts. I think, I would get a GM replacement on this here, the hub bearing, the bearing hub. But I don't know if I would necessarily worry too much about getting a replacement, an exact GM replacement on the bolt. One, slide it through, and here in the service manual it tells you not to reuse that washer and to replace it each time. The torque specs on these bearing hub bolts are 74 foot-pounds and then another 60-degree turn. So I have my torque wrench right here set to 74. I have that dialed in. I'm using the smaller one because it's just kind of tight in here. So I'll turn this until it clicks. Yep, right there. I should be able to get the top one from here too. We'll see. I will. Okay, there you go. Those 2 to 74. I have the third one snug. I don't think I'll be able to get this from here. Oh, actually I will. Keep turning until I hear that click. Right there. Then I'm going to go another 60 degrees. Now to get at that additional 60-degree turn, I'm going to set a carpenter's angle finder right at 60. So I know that, the bar has to, say the bar has to end up right about here. right about there. That's about 60, and that's done. Let's see if I can get on this top one while I'm here. All right, I'm on it. So same deal. I'll have to get up to around here. I can actually go a little more than that. Felt like I cheated it just a hair. Right around there looks good. And if I can get this third bolt from here, that would be fantastic. Might be able to. So same deal. 60 degrees looks about right up here. There you go. Those are torqued down. Now I'm going to straighten this out and continue. You can pause the video here to write down those torque specs. Now to slide the wheel sensor back in. Very easy. And I'll be able to get down on this. And now snug. And this is 89 inch-pounds. That's the torque spec on this. But I'm just going to tighten this by feel. I don't have a torque wrench that'll register in inch-pounds. And I'm fine with that. And to put the rotor on, I was able to wire brush this nice and clean, then spray it with brake parts cleaner, and then wipe that clean. And I just want to line up one of these with this slot right here for that Torx bolt. And I have that right here, again T30, and I put just the tiniest amount of copper anti-seize on this because I replaced my rear rotor and this screw was completely seized and it ended up stripping, and then I had to completely drill it out. So I don't want that to happen again. And this is what manual says, 80 inch-pounds for this. And again, I am not worried about that. And the next thing I'm going to do is put on that drive shaft nut. And here's the part number on that. This is a new part, 11611687. This drive shaft, this CV nut, is torque to yield also. So the service manual says to replace this every time too. So the things you have to replace really are the washer, this nut, the 3 mounting bolts for the bearing hub, and then the 2 caliper bracket bolts. The spec on this is 111 foot-pounds for the first pass. There's 3 passes, so I'll get this to 111. I'm there, right there. Then I have to back it off 45 degrees. That's the second pass. So same strategy. I'll put this around here. And measure 45. So there's my 45 degree. Think of a 90 degree angle. 45 bisects it. So my bar is going to end up right around there. Which looks good. And then the final pass, the final torque value is 185. So I'm going to take my 1/2-inch drive torque wrench and dial it in to 185. There's 175. So 175 and 10 is 185. And I'll get down on this. There you go, 185. And that nut is torque to spec. You can pause the video here to write down the torque specs on that axle nut. Now, I unhooked the caliper. I put back in the brake pad that fell out. And I'm just going to reverse the steps. Slide this back over the rotor. And I have to put in a new caliper bracket bolt like I mentioned. And the part number on that is right there, 11562022. There's 2 of them. And these already have thread locker on them. So I'm not going to add more thread locker. These caliper bracket bolts are also 3 passes when you torque them to spec. Now that I have them snug. The first pass is 74 foot-pounds. Then the second pass is 60 degrees. And then a final pass, which is 15 more degrees. So there's 74 on the bottom bolt. And then there's 74 on the top bolt. Now, much like before, I'll find 60 degrees right there. 60 degrees. Let's get this on there. Okay. 60 degrees, just about here. And then another 15, which is really low. I'll just crank that there. So again, the top bolt, let's hook onto the bolt. 60 degrees right around here. Yep. And another 15. That looks good. You can pause the video here to write down the torque specs on those caliper bracket bolts. To put the tire on, I'm just going to keep reversing my steps. Just line that with the studs. I'm just going to get these snug until I get it on the ground. Then I'll torque it to spec. Lower this very, very slowly. To where it's just touching the ground. With the wheel just touching the ground, I'll torque these to spec. Again, 1/2-inch drive, torque wrench, 100 foot-pounds. And the pattern is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So just tighten until it clicks. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Then I'll lower this down all the way. Collapsed. And I will clear that error code and I will see if this fix worked. It's been about 3 weeks since I replaced that bearing hub and I have no error codes. I took this car on a few very long trips too, so I'm confident that my problem is solved. I just have looks like a tire that needs a little bit of air, but it looks like that is what did the trick. I'm not a mechanic, just a car owner with some capability who finds some interest in doing this kind of work. And there's some nuance to the Chevy Volt that I wanted to put into this video, so I hope this helps. Thanks.